Alrighty, let's start today off with NZD/USD. You guys have voted through messaging me. But before we start off with our potential zones as well as what can it do, let's just have a quick update on the pairs from yesterday. Okay? Excuse me. So starting off with GJ, mind you that we have today high impact news on GBP pairs as well as USD pairs. Okay? So anything that is crossed either with GBP or USD will have a volatility. So just go check forexfactory.com and see according to your time zone when the news will happen, okay? So with GJ, yet again, it has not reached any of our zones. That's why also I have not been given GJ, because GJ, the zones are quite huge. The black zone is quite huge. For it to enter a zone, to be worth it to risk any of our capital for a potential gain, takes quite some time. But once it does, whether you buy or sell from that zone and you get the true direction of it, you can be holding GJ up until 100 to 200 pips. Okay, that is why I love GJ. But I do have a love-hate relationship with it because you can't rush it. Okay, so now with GJ, it did not reach any of our zones, but we can still use our potential sell zone up here and our potential buy zone down here. The reason why it has not reached our sell zone yet is maybe because to continue in this volume or this momentum of an upward trend, it needs a bit of power. Hence, it needs to come down to collect a few of the buyers in the black zone and potentially our buy zone over here for it to actually push back up to potentially test this zone for a mini sell, or it can break out and then we can either continue hold our trades on a buy, or if you have TP'd, then you just wait for the price to retrace back into the key level for the opposite direction. Okay, so again, GBP, we have high impact news, so excuse me, if you want to use these key levels for the US session to trade with news, you can. Just make sure that your money management is on point, and you are ready to cut your losses if it goes the other direction. Okay, but if you're not comfortable with the news, just stay out of it. Okay, or you can scalp before excuse me, the news happens. But usually when the news comes, or if there is news excuse me, oh no, my voice, I will just wait for the news to be released first, and then wait to press after. Okay, next we have EG excuse me, I'm so sorry guys, I don't know what is happening to me. Okay, so EG came into our zone and it played around quite a bit. Then finally on H4 created this engulfing buy. But also it happened in the key level. And because EG is quite a heavy slow pair, it was able to give us from the key level itself up to the highest it made 20 pips. Okay, now it's retesting the zone again. The fact that it is not able to even test this over here or these wicks up here, meaning the sellers or the seller pressure is quite high. So for this 20 mini bounce, it will hit my first TP, right? Like I told you, my first TPs are usually set at excuse me, set at 20 pips. So after the 20 pips, this will already come in to hit my BE, so no re-entry from me. Okay, because I will wait for the H4 to decide first what it wants to do. But either way, we got 20 pips from here. Okay, so now what can you do is you just go into a smaller time frame to see, because on M15 we have in the key level we have this an engulfing fail. If the price decides to break this box again, since it took so much time, right? It played around the key level, breaking zones once it was formed, and then again and again and again. So now, if the price decides to break this M15 zone, then we know that the seller pressure is quite high. Then we just wait for the price to come into our zone again to find a setup for a potential sell down if H4 wants to break the zone. Okay, easy as that. because these zones and the key levels, you can use it both for a buy and a sell, whether it forms the buy or sell setups. Okay? And last but not least, UCAD. Now UCAD, it failed to come into our key levels over here, meaning the buyers were able to just push the price straight from here and from this engulfing buy itself. Okay, so what can it do? If you were able to catch a buy here, not in the key level, make sure you set break even, because we do have a USD high impact news also. So either if the price wants to continue up in this direction and it cannot, then it has to retrace back a little, whether to catch buyers from this engulfing buy or this engulfing buy, or even from the key level for maximum power to push a buy up into the sell zone. Excuse me. But if the sellers have a higher pressure, then after this bounce, if it cannot break this wick over here, or it cannot test these higher wicks, then potentially it will just push the price down, test this again for a mini bounce before breaking. Excuse me. So that's for the update. Okay, now we go into the 3 pairs for today. Just a quick one. We have our sell zone up top, buy zone down below. Now the price is coming to test our buy zone. Why buy? Engulfing sell failed. In the process of failing, created an engulfing buy. Excuse me. Oh no. Now, if the price decides to, let me just go into the daily and just screenshot from here. Okay, my zones are H4, okay, but because it's zoomed in quite a lot, so I'm using the daily instead. Okay, if price decides to come into my zone and respects it, then we can potentially catch a bounce up. But if it breaks below, then we can use the key level for a sell down. Vice versa, same thing that happens with the sell zone. If it goes into the sell zone and respects it, then potentially we can catch a sell back down. But if it breaks above, then I might want to test a higher area. Okay, if you're a low risk trader like me, quite conservative with your capital, wait for the H4 to close first. But if you have a higher risk appetite, then when the price reaches the zone, switch down to M5 or M15 to find your setups before pressing anything. Okay, next, GBP AUD. Alright, GBP AUD. Current price is over here. What can it do? Let me go back to H4. Okay, GBP AUD is also quite a high pip movement kind of pair, because from this zone to this zone is already around 200 or more than 200 pips. Okay, so just mind you of that. Be careful of that. Now the current price is over here. If H4 closes even at where its current price is at, then it would make another engulfing buy. Okay, so meaning the buyer pressure is quite high. We have an engulfing buy over here, an engulfing buy over here, and this was an engulfing failed zone. We also have another engulfing buy here and here. So this is an ABC zone, right? Our HLZ zone. So if the buyers decide to create another engulfing buy and it wants to go up or continue up, then either you can wait for the key level again, or just find continuation setups as it moves up in the upward trend. Okay, but either way, it has to break this high, it has to break this high and this high for it to reach our sell zone. Okay, so you might see the price come into play like this, drop down a little bit, go up again, drop down a little bit, test this one in the H4 perspective before reaching our sell zone. Okay, that's just potentials of it. Now what can it actually do? My nose. Okay, if it drops down and still respects our buy setup or buy zone, then we can catch a buy. If it breaks down below, again we wait for the key level for a sell down. Vice versa, if it comes into our sell zone and respects it, then we catch a sell back down. But if it breaks above, then potentially it might want to test a higher area. Okay, if you like scalping, or you don't want to wait at the key level, then you can just find continuation setups for the go. But because it's a GBP pair and we have a high impact news, I will just be waiting at the key levels because there's a potential for it to just spike or do a very fast drop to touch the key levels before going up, or even just break the zones. All right, there are potentials, so I am taking the lowest risk possible for my account. Okay. SLs, again, after entering any trades, just count 40 pips from your entry price. Last but not least, oh no, we have Euro USD. Okay, now Euro USD, when I mapped it out, this price was still in this zone, hence I wanted you to monitor this area. Okay, but you can still use to monitor it. This will just be a failed zone. Okay, we have our buy zone down here, sell zone up top. If the current price, or if the price actually just closes below this zone, then this zone becomes our potential sell zone because it will be a fail. For any of you, you can also just adjust this zone to this engulfing buy over here, but I like a lot of data because I want to take into account this bounce of the support of it being a buy zone like this. Okay, but again, completely up to you. So current price is over here. What can EU do? All right, okay, EU is crossed with USD, right? And we have a high impact sooner or later in the evening, so just be careful of that. So what can EU do? If EU decides to come into our buy zone and respects it, then we can catch a buy back up. If it breaks below, then it might want to test a lower area. Now if it breaks this zone on this H4, this will become our potential sell zone, meaning after H4 closing, we can either wait for it to retrace back into the zone for a potential sell down, or we continue to monitor the H4. If it does not come into close within the zone, but rather shoots up high, then there's a potential it might want to test this area also. Okay, everything's just potential at this point. So I'm just letting you know. Again, for TP points, I usually set my first TP at 20 pips, just so it's a mark for me to BE all the rest of my trades. Okay, so that's it for the 3 pairs and the updates. Please stay safe with your account because we do have high impact news on both GBP and USD. And I will get to your messages soon.